nowadays you don't have to hide them in your room. They're brought into your room by all kinds of things. And then my wife asked me that question: can we help kids and families before they get addicted to this stuff? Can we shut this down? So it's not a question of if your kids are going to get exposed, it's when. How do you protect them and still be able to use technology? It was boys, but even more and more girls are getting exposed. Yes. Pornography built the internet. So there is an intent to distribute this unrestricted, unlimited access to everything good and disgusting on the internet. And we're hooking it up to our house, and we're paying $90 to have unrestricted access to all of this.
Doing nothing is no longer an option.
Well, welcome everybody to the SafetyNet podcast, where we're going to try to have conversations to help equip you to have a safer internet experience. And my name is Josh Lewis, and I am your host. And with me is the man that I like to call the genius, hacker, brains, and heart of the pod, Sean Artisan. So today we're going to talk about how can teens protect their kids from pornography. I think, just with increasing internet access, increasing just different apps and different things, and honestly, like the younger and younger kids get that have access to these. In this episode, we really do want to kind of give parents the landscape, and also hopefully at the end give them some hope, give them some tips, give them some next steps. But so Sean, how with specifically kids and pornography, right? And so we're thinking any kids anywhere 18 and younger, right? How are they getting access to these things?
Yeah, Josh, that's a fantastic question. And I mean, really, ultimately, the question that led to the formation of Ark Cyber. So I myself had a pornography addiction or idolatry. I got exposed when I was 11. I think we talked about that last time. And my battle was with VHS tapes and magazines that were being hidden in my own room by another family member. And nowadays, the things are, you don't have to hide them in your room. They're brought into your room by all kinds of things. And so this, the idolatry piece or the addiction piece that carved out so much of my life, brought me to biblical counseling organizations where they were helping other guys that were in sexual addiction. And I was leading purity groups and doing biblical counseling for men after my graduation from the Pure Life Ministries program 20 years. And then my wife asked me that question: can we help kids and families before they get addicted to this stuff? Can we shut this down? And really, ultimately, the person, it's an individual choice. At one point, the choice becomes, I want to keep doing this, but it doesn't start that way. The way it starts is exposure. Somebody was shown or sought or you just saw something. And so, and everywhere you look, you turn on your TV, it's basically pornography. And the censorship, if you look at the things that were on TV 50s, 60s, it's progressively worse and worse and worse. So it's not a question of if your kids are going to get exposed, it's when and how and by whose hand it will come. And the hand part, I mean, is did one kid hand it to another kid? Did one kid show somebody's phone? Did mom and dad watch Game of Thrones? And every 5 seconds in the first season literally is softcore pornography. So how do you protect them and still be able to use technology? Right. It's a fantastic question. Really, it boils down to what are the things that you're going to do to either help prevent it, minimize it, reduce the risk of the exposure. So that's kind of what we got to talk about.
Yeah, that's helpful. So I'm curious, how young are kids? Because I think sometimes, as a former youth pastor, there's like some parents were shocked that their middle schooler could be exposed to this. How young can this go?
Yeah, so a lot of the statistics still show roughly between the age of 11 and 12, but I've seen even younger, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8 year olds being exposed by a family member or whatever. So the average, I think, is still around 11 or 12 years of age that they're being exposed. But there's plenty of cases where they're much younger. So
Yeah. Wow. So really, no matter
and,
what
yeah, and it
age
used
your
to be just
kids
boys.
are,
It was boys, but even more and more girls are getting
yes.
exposed, and girls are actually becoming addicted to this. And there's a few ministries. I can't think of the names offhand. I'll get the names and we'll put those out there for girls who are addicted to pornography. So yeah,
Yeah.
organizations like that.
Right. That I think that's an important thing to call out. This is not just a thing for boys. It's not just
Mhm.
a thing for older boys. It's a thing for literally just about every age.
Mhm.
And again, like you were saying, it's not just um we they're necessarily always searching it out. There is an exposure piece because you clicked on something wrong, you tapped on the wrong thing, somebody showed it to you at school, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that's important. There's let's talk a little bit of not only just initial exposure, but like
Mhm.
maybe after that. And this part isn't necessarily, I don't want this to scare parents
Mhm.
if they're not aware of these things, but I think in order to really help your kids, you just have to be aware. You have to
Yeah.
understand kind of the landscape of things, right? So what are the ways that not only are kids maybe getting that first initial exposure on accident,
Mhm.
but what are other ways that you're seeing kids maybe access pornography or even hide it?
Yeah, the way you worded that question is fantastic, Josh, because when you say the landscape, the internet was created, back in the day. The funding to rapidly grow and expand and improve the internet, a lot of that funding came from pornographers. The goal was to get more people connected, higher quality video, higher throughput, higher bandload, higher download speed, and all of that. A lot of that money, majority of that money, came from pornographers. I have some slides that I had done a study, and I did a talk in Texas last year at Round Rock at the Great Homeschool Conference, basically quoting those statistics from Indiana Law University that showed pornography built the internet. And I can give you access to all that stuff. You can publish those. But that information's out there. Pornography built the internet. So there is an intent, an intent to distribute this and to get it out there. There are what they call top level domains, TLDs.com, .org, .gov. Those TLDs have specific purposes. Com is commerce, gov is government, edu is education. And so there have been movements where pornography needs to be moved to a top level domain, a TLD of .xxx. The
Mm,
most lobbying and anti lobbying you'll ever see is when you try to force pornography to go behind a TLD.xxx. If we were to just move all pornographic material to the .xxx top level domain,
mm,
you could block the entire TLD and
yep.
put it behind walls where kids can't accidentally access this stuff. And pornographers do everything they can to keep that from happening because they want
Mm,
people consuming their product. And they'll use all kinds of things like, oh, it's freedom of speech, and
right.
sure, you're free to oppress and exploit women who are abusing drugs and alcohol because they hate
Yeah.
what they're doing and the only thing that they can do. And so sure, freedom of speech, right? But
Right.
yeah, so a lot of the means of access is literally just the what I like to call the sewage pipe that we've hooked up to our house.
Mm,
When we buy our internet from any internet service provider, they are bringing pure, unfiltered, unrestricted, unlimited access to everything good and disgusting on the internet. And we're hooking it up to our house, and we're paying $90, whatever, $100 a month
right.
to have unrestricted access. And that is by far, I think, the biggest problem in most households today is people back in the day, everybody had to get on the internet. Everybody had to get on the internet, get it out
Right.
there, get broadband, get DSL, get fiber. And we just said, yeah, more, faster, faster, faster. And then they just kept bringing bigger and bigger sewage pipes to our house. All of it is pure, unfiltered, just filth. And we've learned to, what I like to use the analogy, we learned to swim in the sewage tank. And so we got some people kayaking, some people on yachts, some people just kind of in a little inflatable boat, all trying to keep the poo away from us while we paddle from island to island to find the good stuff, but the internet is just a cesspool of filth and criminal activity. And there's a ton of great things on there. Don't get me wrong; it's a
Right.
big thing. But I don't want to learn how to navigate well in a sewage tank. I want to I want to have a clean, safe internet, and the only way to do that is to force all the filth to go to different top level domains. Stay on the internet, stay on whatever, but you belong on a different TLD. You do not belong where the rest. You maybe remember back in the day when you would order TV. It didn't come with pornography and filth by default. You wanted it, you paid extra. You paid extra for HBO, you paid extra for the Playboy channel. All those other things came extra. It was not the default experience. That has changed. That paradigm has shifted, and now the default is pure filth all the time, as much as you want. And I mean snuff videos, gore videos, mass murders and suicide. Anything and everything you can think of is on the internet. And it's available to anyone at any time, 24/7, nonstop. So unrestricted access is probably the worst.
I think there's a lot of parents that have some level of filtering or something like that, right? So you said like one of the biggest problems is not only is really just the unrestricted access, and it's just there. It's just available. If you have access to a device, that is hooked up to the internet and has a screen, you have access to some sort of pornographic material.
Yeah.
However,
all kinds of harmful content. Yeah. But
yeah. Yes. And I think that's a helpful distinction, because it's not just, we're mainly talking about pornography, but it is harmful content in general. What are other ways that you are seeing that you've heard the stories of how say a kid has been exposed to it, and maybe they're continuing to try to access it, or maybe they're also trying to potentially hide it. What are some ways that is happening right now?
Yeah. So, a lot of these social media platforms, Snapchat, Twitter. I don't know if you remember Vine.
That
the
was precursor to like TikTok and all them. Yeah.
That Vine no longer exists because the child pornography problem that they had on there. Literally, young people and the quote, "do it for the Vine," posting things of themselves on Vine and sharing it with the world. There's other reasons they got shut down. The platform just went away or actually migrated to something else. But Vine, that was one of the ways. And so social media, things like Snapchat and other platforms that allow you to interact within the platform itself. And it's not something, you have to go to a different place to. Everything happens within that hosted server channel. And so you can create a private group in your social media. And unless you invite somebody into that private group, you cannot see what's going on. The administrators of the servers and things like that, Facebook can go and investigate, Twitter and other places can go and investigate those groups, but they have to be reported first, and you have to know what's going on in them to report them. And you can, and I don't recommend it, but you can go search all the different kinds of Facebook groups that are out there. And literally, if you start looking through the private groups, there's pornography, sex group meetings, orgy meetups. It's literally human trafficking and escort services and all kinds of other debauchery in these private groups that just goes on under the guise of a social media platform. So, Twitter, since Elon Musk has taken over, a lot has changed. A lot has improved. Twitter still is a pornographic website masquerading as a social media platform. So much available on Twitter. Just with a search term, you can find all kinds of just filth on there. Snapchat, TikTok, there's all of that stuff. There is a website dedicated to finding and posting and sharing YouTube content that has crossed a line. And until the people actually find it on YouTube, report it to YouTube, and then the YouTube censors go and take it down, the content's still there. And it's hardcore pornography, a lot of softcore, accidental exposures, things like that. And just to get the views and the monetization is what they're after. And so all of those other ways, those platforms they're porn distributors until they say, "Oh no, we've taken it down. It goes against our content, our conduct policy, and all these other things." But that stuff is still up there. And YouTube, so YouTube has put a thing in. They have YouTube Kids. if you go if you go to YouTube Kids and you just search and just watch a trail of videos, you start to see all of the things that are out there that no child should be watching. And this is still acceptable for YouTube Kids. They say it's acceptable, but any regular, like, rational parent would look at this and go, absolutely not. This is not. I don't want my child to even have to think about this stuff right now. Let them, be a child and mature, and then learn that stuff. Have those conversations and things like that. But to see the stuff that's on there is just, no 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, not even 11-year-old can really process it and understand it. And the fantastical nature of their minds is just, it's just not ready to kind of consume that content. So social media is a tough one.
I didn't realize even like YouTube Kids is like a problematic thing. So that's helpful, just because it has kids in the name of the
it
segment.
Just tells you who their target is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and keep
a
going.
guy I met in Pigeon Forge at the Teach Them Diligently homeschool conference, great content creator. He has a site called GoodTube Kids, and he showed me a video it took him 5 seconds to get to the video on YouTube Kids, and when I saw it, I just was like, wow, I cannot believe, like, how is this allowed on a children's platform? And I was just blown away. So yeah, if you've not heard of GoodTube Kids, you got to go check him out. He's absolutely amazing.
Okay. That's helpful. I think, and I mean, my daughter's 4, right? And so like make sure that, like, again, I think unrestricted access, especially for a 4-year-old, should probably also mean like very supervised, no matter what. Like,
there's terrifying, and I mean terrifying in the sense that it's horror designed for children. So it may not be like, oh my gosh, I'm aghast at that. It's actual horror cartoons designed for children. Like, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, and I mean, I'm sure there's a whole lot of different things too, right? So, there's, I mean, there's apps out there, right, that you can like hide images or videos or whatever under the guise of like it's a calculator or whatever, right? There's things like that out there.
Yeah, it's in the hacker world, there's things hidden in plain sight, steganography, things like that. And so you basically, it looks innocuous, but when you go to launch the app, it's password protected or biometric protected. And inside of that app, there are nefarious things. There are private chat groups, private message group, pornography sharing, kids taking selfies of themselves, sexting, all those other things. Yeah. And those kinds of apps exist. There's dozens of them, and they're free and available. And if you want the easiest way to do it, just go to the App Store and type in "hide my photos." Apple on its iOS, for privacy and protection, has created a hidden folder on the iOS now. So you take a picture, you do something that you don't want it to just show up in your photo album. Under the photo options, you touch the ellipsis at the top, and there's just a hide, and you hit hide. It'll send it to the hidden folder, and it's built into the iOS. So they're giving people, and maybe there's a need for that. I can't think of any whatever. Maybe some people have some legit reasons, but you hide those in there, and they're out of your private video. But if you, password or biometric face protection is how it unlocks. So unless it's your face, unless you put your face on the phone as a secondary authority to unlock that device, you can't see even what's going on in there. And they're building that kind of stuff into, as a hacker, I like anonymity. I like being able to keep things and, have fake social media profiles, just because there's a thing called open source intelligence, or OSINT, right? And I'm not going to use my profile to go out and gather OSINT. I'm going to use some of the fake ones. And, so there's legitimate reasons, but I'm acting as a malicious actor to try to, get this intel so that I can use it, gather it, and then use it against you in, maybe password dictionary creating. I'm trying to learn all I can about your life and your, are you a fan of Boston Terriers? And look, here's a little Boston Terrier group that I created, and now you're interacting with the group, and we're talking about your favorite this and your favorite that. And I build a little database, and then I use tools like Crunch to just kind of create password dictionaries and then I just do a password spray or some other kind of brute force tactic where I can kind of go after. So there's legit reasons for, as a pen tester to want to have things that aren't publicly visible and stuff like that. Sure. But when you're talking about kids and giving them the kind of tools where they can practice willful deceit to hide their hidden life, and you're giving them those kind of access to those tools, that's a problem.
Right. No, that makes sense. So, all right, I'm sure, parents, if they're listening right now, they're probably scared out of their mind and like, that's it. No more technology in the house, like whatever. But at the top of the episode, one of the things you had mentioned is, okay, so how do we navigate this in a way, and without getting rid of technology?
Yeah.
So assuming there actually is a way, right? There is a way to go about this. Or maybe there's it's probably multifaceted, right? It's probably not just one thing. What are some of those things? How can you protect your kids from things specifically? I'm thinking specifically like pornography. How can parents do that?
Yeah, so they can do what we're doing. We have a conversation. It's out there, man. If you see this stuff, come talk to me. Make your environment so that your children aren't afraid, if they do something wrong. We were talking about this today. My wife called me on the way home, and we had just spoken. So she calls me 5 minutes later, and I was like, oh no, usually she doesn't call me this quick, especially when she said, okay, I'll see you when you get here. Either she forgot something or something has just happened that she needs to tell me. And she says, well, when you get here, can you look at the dishwasher? Something's broken, and we found the broken piece in the middle of the dishwasher, and we don't know how to put it back on. And one of the rules we have in the house is everything that we have in this house is replaceable. Nothing is more important than our relationship. So if you break something, just come tell me, and I can either fix it or we'll get a new one. It's not a big deal. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to cover it up. So we've created an environment in our home where anything happens. If something gets broken, stuff breaks all the time. Don't try to cover it up. Don't try to fix it yourself. Just come, let us look at it. Let me look at it. If I can fix it, I'm an engineer. I can fix a lot of things. And so just show it to us. And so by having that conversation, our whole family knows, oh, I just broke something. Just go tell dad. So they're not afraid. There's no consequences other than like, oh, come on. Like, did you really have to slam it that hard? You knucklehead? This wasn't made for that. And so it just ends up being good conversations. And so you can do the same thing. The whole point wasn't to glorify the breaking of the object. I didn't want to encourage them to break the object so that dad's got to come fix it. And that shouldn't be the point of the conversation of pornography. The point of the conversation about pornography should be, it's okay to tell me something if you've seen it. And you don't want to make it all about the pornography. And you don't want to make it all about, let's normalize the pornography word, because you don't want to normalize that word in your life. You really want that word to have no meaning other than when the meaning is needed to be addressed or has a need to be addressed. And so by having the conversations, you're not glorifying the pornography. You're not making it about the pornography. You're making it about the ability of your family to have conversations about anything. And so that's a great way to do it.
That's so good. So with these conversations, is there like a magic formula to it? Is that, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like sometimes
just click on our website and we'll sell it to you for $99.
Right. It's just like, what's the, what are some of the, one, is there a formula for this? Is there a way to go about it? Or like, are there elements to it? Like, I think one of the things I thought I heard you say was just like, when it happens, you just tell me, and there's not a repercussion, because we just need to have this open line of communication. Right. Yeah. And so what are the things that go into that conversation that you have found helpful, or maybe like you had wished had happened, or like, tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, kind of using the analogy of the broken things, don't wait so long that whatever's broken causes more damage. Right. So that's one of the most important parts of the broken problem. And the longer you wait to tell me that the dishwasher's broken, now we ran the dishwasher with this broken thing and water has shot out somewhere. Same thing with the conversations about pornography. Don't wait to tell me that you saw something, because the longer you wait, you've now created another problem on top of this. Now you've seen it, but now you've covered it, and now that's a different problem. That's a deception problem. And so as you try to create this conversation, you want them to know, you got to bring it to me right away, bud. You got to bring it to me right away, honey, whatever. And there's nothing wrong with you coming to tell me that this has happened. And so you want them to do that as quick as possible, because you don't want them lingering on it. A lot of these images and things that you see, I still have, memories that I have to fight. And there's a reason Scripture says to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, because our minds, even if you're no longer a child, our minds and our imaginations run. And you can imagine the imagination of a child is just super active. And now they've seen this, and now they're fantasizing about it, and they have no context for what it is. They just know that it was arousing. They know that they liked it, and they want to see it more. And until you can get them to talk about it and bring it out of the shadows and into the light, then it's still festering. It's still growing and doing more damage inside their mind and inside their heart. So the first thing is to just create that environment where they're going to want to talk to you quickly. They're not going to want to cover it quickly. Just like Adam and Eve, the first thing they did when they sinned, what was the very first thing they did? They hid. They ran and hid. And so, it's not like we don't know where our kids are, but they want to hide that. We all want to hide everything that we do wrong. We want to run and hide. And if you can create that environment where the first thing they do is not run and hide, but run and confess, you have a huge opportunity for success from that point, because I know then there's a trust that's built. Okay, I told him I did this. Oh, and I went back because I really wanted to see it one more time. That kind of helps eliminate that. It doesn't get rid of it, because if they've created that, but now they're going to come to you again, and they're going to keep coming to you. And then and I love when my youngest comes to me and he's like, "Hey, just so you know, this happened and I broke this thing." And I'm like, I don't even have to come ask him anymore, because he knows I'm not going to get in trouble. I've proven to him he can come tell me over and over, and there is no repercussion. Dad'll fix it. I'll get to it when I can. You're going to have to live without it if it's something that was important for a couple, maybe until I have to buy another one, whatever. So over that course of time, I've proven what I told him was true. Like, it wasn't a trap. It wasn't like, haha, spankings now or whatever. Right. It was what I said was no consequences. I will fix it, or we'll get a new one. And I've proven over and over. And so he keeps coming and he keeps telling me, because now he knows, like, I'm not going to break everything in the house so I can get a brand new one. Right. There will be consequences for that. But sure. It wasn't about the thing. It was about the honesty between us. So that really helps.
That helps, because it seems like by your consistency, your kid is able to see, like, oh, this is actually what dad values. And I think sometimes, as parents, and I've talked with many parents through some like ugly situations and different things, like it can be scary, because there's unknownness, there's some shame there might be like, man, I should have been more proactive, and now I'm dealing with this, or my kid is into this, or there's like all these different emotions that kind of come up. And then if you don't prove to your kid that the relationship is more valuable than my own personal sense of shame or whatever, then like if you don't prove that, then you're kind of setting them up to fail, it sounds like. But if you're proving to them like, hey, you literally can come to me with anything, then that opens up the vulnerability. Having these conversations about you can come to me with anything, and kind of like first time, especially if your kids are younger, this is helpful. But like first time, we care about the relationship more than whatever. Okay, so there's that piece. What are some other things that parents can do to protect their kids from pornography?
Yeah, so you can do kind of what I did, right? So I've been in the IT field now 30 some years, and I mostly am self-taught. I did go to college, I have a bachelor's degree in technical management, and a lot of the focus that I had in my studies was on Cisco, Avaya, and a handful of other things for my senior project. And so, but everything outside of my degree is all self-paced learning. And so I learned firewalls, I learned proxies, I learned cyber. I went and took the offensive security certified professional. That's a course, and I spent a lot of time on that course learning how to hack into and secure to secure things. The reason you hack into them is so you know how to identify the vulnerabilities to lock them down. So you can get training. There's all kinds of free YouTube content. There's all kinds of paid for content. There's a site, Protect Young Eyes. He has some of the most thorough things I've ever seen available out there. And he's put a lot of work into making guides, into making videos. And I think his app actually gives you training videos, and you can subscribe to his stuff. There's all kinds of training out there. So if that's your thing, go get the training and learn how to secure your router. Go get the training and learn how to harden your Windows devices, and learn how to harden your iOS and Android devices. And the one of the biggest problems is the kids these days are way smarter at technology than we are. And so parents are throwing parental control apps on their device, and the kid is literally just throwing a VPN on and bypassing everything the parent did in a 5-second download. And because the parent doesn't understand how the technology works, they think, I put a parental control app on, therefore my kid is now going to be under my control. If they didn't take the extra steps that you need to do, which is more than putting a parental control app on, is actually hardening the device against unintended use, right? So when you put a parental control app on a device, you have a frame of mind of intentional use. Your mind is like, I want them to use this in the way I intend.
Sure.
But the child or the user of that device says, I don't want to use it the way you want me to use it. I have an unintended use. And if you don't prevent unintended use, they've completely, the whole platform is defeatable. And most of the parental control platforms out there are trivially defeated in seconds with just very simple things. And the sad part is these kids know it, and they share this information. They're like a little collection of hive minds. They all share this stuff, and they share it in the schools, public and private, and even homeschool, co-ops. They're all like, oh, sure, my parents put this stupid thing. And if you go to the App Store and read some of the app reviews on parental control platform, it's the kid reviewing the app saying, this app's the worst, I can't do anything. And they get like tons of negative reviews. And so their app just like tanks because the kids are all negative reviewing it, and people just like, oh, I don't want to use that app. Everybody hates it. Well, it's not everybody. It's the kids that are reviewing it and just saying this is trash. And so, yeah, they've learned how to downgrade the app in app stores just by giving negative reviews. So, so many things that they've learned. But if you are the kind of person that wants to get smarter and to, stay a handful of steps ahead of your little tech hacker genius, then you need to, to get some of those advanced courses. Learn how to secure your router in your home so that your smart TV is protected, because there's no Bark app for a smart TV. There's no Bark Circle app, things like that. There's things, and then if you take your laptop out of your home, you're this device that was protected by your Wi-Fi doesn't work anymore. The Griffin router, great solution, except if I'm using my laptop outside of the house, or I just turn my phone on, my hotspot on my phone. So I'm no longer on the Griffin Wi-Fi. Griffin can't secure my laptop because I'm on my own hotspot on my phone. So if I'm a kid, I'm a 16-year-old kid, I go in my room. I don't know if I should give this information away, but hey, listen up. If your kids have hotspots and you don't know that they're using those, that's a big problem. So you have the Griffin router, you have the Circle Home Plus, all of these in-home devices. All the kid has to do is go into their room, turn on a hotspot on their device, and they have completely bypassed your Wi-Fi restrictions. So if you don't know that, call your carrier and tell them you do not want hotspots on any of your devices, because that is the most simple way to bypass those in-home protection devices, because they don't have apps that go on your laptops. So Chromebooks, none of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So
trivial. Very trivial.
Like it's insane. Like the amount of ways that things can be bypassed, right?
Yeah.
So what if you're just like, well, okay, I'm going to say this first. One of the things that is standing out to me with what you just said is that it's very important to not just bring technology into your home,
Mm.
to give it to your kids, to give access, even if it's a smart TV, which
Mm-hmm.
almost everybody has one, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's important to make sure that there is something there, right?
Yeah.
So, but what if you're just like, I'm not that technically inclined, like to
Yeah.
some extent, like that's the world we live in. If you're
Mm-hmm.
going to bring it, it's almost like if you have a dog in your house, if you have a pet, you have to take care of it. You have to learn
Yeah.
how to
You
take
got to
care of it,
learn.
right?
Yeah.
So there's an element of learning that
Mm-hmm.
parents will need to have, and we're hoping with this podcast, right? It gives parents some tools for that. I know
Yeah.
you're wanting to create some guides for
Mm-hmm.
parents as well, but say it's just a little too much,
Yeah.
right? What do those parents do, right? Which I
Yeah.
think is the majority.
Yeah. So that's why Ark Cyber exists. Right now, if you need some kind of technical help with your laptop and you bought it at Best Buy, you may have signed up for Geek Squad protection, and you'll go take your laptop in because you don't know how to fix it. You don't know hardware, things, and you just want it to work the way it was when you bought it. You take it to them, they fix it, they do their magic behind the scenes of the Geek Squad, and then all of a sudden you got a brand new shiny Mac again or a Windows laptop, whatever. Basically, that's what we do. Ark Cyber is the team of people that want to do this for you. So we do, I know how to design secure networks. I do this in the defense contracting space. I do this freelance. I've done multiple pen tests for organizations private organizations on the side. And so I know how to do these things. And basically you just reach out to us and say, I don't want to learn how to do this. I'm a full-time mom. I'm a full-time dad. I don't want to become a cyber hacker, ethical hacker, pen tester. I just want my kids to be able to use technology more safely than they are right now, because right now we're not doing anything because we just don't know how to do it. I tried a few things and then my kid got around it. So we can, these guides, when we create these guides and publish these guides are going to actually show you step by step. This is how you actually effectively use screen time on an iOS device. This is how you use the Google Family app. This is how you use Microsoft Family and lock your stuff down so that, if you want limited time limits on the Xbox and content limits on the Xbox, you can actually do it. And so if you have a smart TV like most people have, like you said, Josh, we show you that there's parental control elements to these devices that are available, and you create the intended use environment that you want. And then we help you get to the level of risk you're willing to accept in your internet experience. So
Wow,
that's one way.
And again, if you all didn't listen to the first episode, ArkCybr is free.
It's
Like
free.
Sean is giving these services for free. It's ArkCybr is a crowdfunded organization, but this doesn't cost you. You should just sign up. Like, there's a link in the description. Just sign up. Like, if especially if you're not sure or you're concerned or whatever, you need to sign up to get your stuff secured. This is like Sean said earlier in the episode, the whole reason why ArkCybr started was because he wanted to help families before it got bad, before they had to go to a potential residential ministry, which they're great and praise God for them, but like it would be great if it didn't get to that point. So sign up. It's in the link in the description. Okay. So, we've talked about, we've given the bad news, we've given the landscape of things, right? We've talked about some ways parents can practically go through things, whether it's having conversations with their kids, whether it's personally getting training for themselves or reaching out to ArkCybr to help. What are in kind of wrapping up this episode, do you have any closing thoughts in terms of like just not being afraid, not just being, because that's one thing we don't want on this podcast, right? Like, we want parents to be aware, but not afraid, not discouraged, right? What are some things that we can maybe encourage parents with?
Yeah. So when we were going over the marketing kind of brand and all of the like ideas and just kind of conceptual, when we came up with Ark Cyber, we're like, oh, the boat, the flood, and this and that, and there was some thought about internet flooding your life was the question we landed on because it tied into the boat, it tied into the flood, and one of my marketing teammates basically said, everybody is already afraid. You don't want to play on the fear. And so by asking the question, just internet flooding your life, it wasn't like, protection against the flood or, what we didn't want it to sound so like, oh, because
Are you
everybody,
drowning?
exactly. We just wanted to stay away from that because that isn't the message. The message is there's hope. There's a group, there's us to help, and we want to help, and we want people to be able to use technology safely. You don't have to be a believer. You don't have to be a Christian to love your family. You don't have to. You just, everybody, I think for the most part, when you have a family and you have kids, you love them and you want to, give them the greatest opportunities they can to thrive and to survive in this world. And technology is something that families have to embrace to just keep up with the next child that's trying to outpace their kid for the for the job and for the career and for the whatever. And so there's a way to use technology and to use it safely. You don't need full access to the wide open internet to do those things. There's things you can do. You can just search DNS filtering. You can search content filtering. You can do those kind of things. And if you are not a believer, you can have some level of comfort knowing that you have fixed their problem in this life, at least that you've reduced the opportunities for them to be exposed to something that could lead to addiction. A lot of times sexual addiction goes hand in hand with drugs and alcohol because the drugs and alcohol are used to quiet the voices of guilt and shame associated with that type of sexual behavior, if it's promiscuity or same sex, whatever it is that they're trying to quiet, multiple partners, all those things, they're trying to quiet that. They use drugs and alcohol. If you want to keep your kids from going down that road and doing those things, you can do things like that. If you're a believer, you can pray. Number one, most important thing you can do for your family is pray, and you can read your Bible and you can trust the Lord in his plans. And then you can be a diligent shepherd of your family and do the things to set no wicked thing before your eyes or their eyes. You can limit the content of the things that you're consuming. If you're consuming a lot of worldly things, are you creating a worldly environment, or are you creating a godly environment in your home? So there's just all different kinds of frame of mind that you as the parent and the shepherd of those children have to decide what's more important. Do you want everything in the world that your child has access to, and that has access to your child, all that stuff in the world, because it is a two-way, or do you want something more, something better for your child? So
Man, that's great. That's helpful. Yeah, I think what's cool about a lot of the things you've laid out is there are, for those who are Christians, right, there's a spiritual component of, you can pray, you can do these things, but then no matter if you're a Christian or not, you can have conversations with your kids and you can actually put restrictions on devices and kind of those safety nets, which is why we're calling the podcast that, right? It's like there are these safety nets to kind of keep these kids out of harm's way, to at least some extent. Like you can jump way over the safety nets, and there's always these things, which is why it's important to not just do one. You need to be doing all of them if really you're going to have the best chance for success.
That layered approach.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Sean, thank you. This is great. This is super, I think super informative. I mean, I learned some stuff on this, and and I created the outline for this. So I was like, man, you're like teaching me stuff left and right. So this is really helpful. So yeah, parents, again, we'll link to some of the stuff that Sean mentioned in the show notes, but remember, we this podcast is here for you. It is here to be a resource to help, whether you're a parent, whether you're single and you're on your own, whether it's just you and your spouse. Like, this podcast is really to help equip you to have a safer internet experience. And I just want to remind everybody again, ArkCybr, while it is free, it is also crowdfunded. And, Sean and I were joking earlier about like, man, if we're able to like get more support, we can get Sean a better camera or something like that. And but seriously, like, what you do is going to help Sean not only help more families one-on-one, but also through this podcast. And so would you please consider just going to the Pay It Forward page link below. Also, there's a link below to ask questions. If you guys have specific questions that you would like answered, please click the link below. Let us know what kind of things you're curious about, and also just follow us on social media as we're kind of replaying some of these clips, and so you have a better idea of what's going on with ArkCybr and the tools we're putting out. So thank you guys so much, and that's all we got.
Just do something. Doing nothing is no longer an option.